name is Kathy Beard, and I'm the Director of Adult Services at the Norman Williams Library in Woodstock, Vermont. And welcome to our second Great Cooks of Woodstock. And today we're talking about breakfast, which just happens to be my favorite meal. And who better to talk about breakfast than the owner of a B&B? So with us today is Jill Rose, and she is the co-owner of the Applebutter Inn, which is a B&B in Taftsville, Vermont. After a long life as a dairy farm, it became a B&B in the 1980s. Jill and her husband are the only third owners of this. Please check out their website. I will post a link to it along with Jill's recipes at the end of this program. So welcome, Jill.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it.
It's going to be fun.
My only problem is that, as I said, I'm a pancake lover and a waffle lover. So as we said, when this COVID thing all gets over with, I'm coming over.
That's right. I owe you pancakes for sure.
Okay. So why don't you give a little background about you, yourself, and your passion for cooking? And if, as I said, if you call yourself a baker or a cook or maybe both?
Sure. Well, Don and I bought the Applebutter Inn about 4 years ago, so we just finished our 5th summer. We talked about doing it for a very long time, so it is definitely the fulfillment of a dream. I grew up with a mom who was a single mom, and she worked full time. So she did not have a lot of time to cook, and we ate a lot of shake and make chicken and a lot of TV dinners. She is a good cook, but there was just no time. And so when I got my first apartment, that was the thing that I really wanted to do, is I wanted to teach myself how to cook. And it turns out that baking is just my favorite thing to do. I love to bake. I like to read cookbooks. Well, you know that because I come to the library to get them.
Yeah, favorite in that regard.
Watch cooking shows and just try new things, see if I can advance my skills. And having the bed and breakfast has just been so wonderful. I've learned so much.
So do you find that you can really be creative more as a cook than a baker? I mean, a baker to me, I mean, when I make my cakes or whatever, I feel like I really have to follow the recipe, maybe throw in an extra bit of spice here and there. But do you find that you can be really pretty creative? I guess it's probably the more you know how to bake, actually, right?
Well, you're right. You can't be creative with the proportions, of a cake, for example. It's not going to rise. So the creativity in baking is more about finding new recipes, experimenting with new flavors. Passion fruit is a new one for me.
Passion fruit?
Yeah, you can now buy passion fruit in puree in a little bottle. You actually have to buy 2 on Amazon. It's not expensive. It keeps forever in the fridge. And passion fruit is just this wonderful flavor. And you mix it with, for example, white chocolate and make a glaze for a pancake. And it's so good. Flavors more than proportions in baking.
What would you say a passion fruit sort of tastes like? I mean, it's kind of citrusy. I mean, I don't really know. Obviously.
It's citrusy and a little bit sour, but not as sour as a lemon. So it's a flavor that a lot of people haven't had before, and it's wonderful with chocolate, dark chocolate and white chocolate. So that's just kind of fun.
Yeah, oh, that sounds really good. So that's another thing you can give me when I come over. So then you said pretty much that your expectations have been met with the B&B. I mean, it's everything that you thought it would be,
Well, first of all, Vermont is everything that we hoped it would be.
Where'd you come from?
Massachusetts, Marblehead, Mass is where I'm from.
Yeah.
And my husband and I lived there for 20 years while we raised our kids, our 2 daughters. Vermont is so wonderful, and it's so beautiful, and Woodstock is wonderful. And we fell in love with the B&B. I love to bake, and that's mostly what I get to do now. So it really is wonderful. I would say the only wonderful thing is not wonderful thing is, facing 6 rooms worth of sheets and towels on a Sunday afternoon after everyone leaves.
Yeah.
My husband, bless him, does the laundry for the most part, but let's be honest, laundry is not fun.
Yeah. And other than that, it's all good.
Well, meeting people here at the inn, I mean, we have met some wonderful people. We have a guy who comes, he rescued an owl on Long Island where he lives. He brought it to the Vermont Institute of Natural Science down the road here in Quechee, Vins, and he comes to visit it. He comes like twice a year.
Oh.
So nice. And he usually comes by himself. Sometimes he brings his girlfriend. So we get to see him, we get to know him, and he's here visiting an owl. I mean, how cool is that?
That is way cool. It's great. Good stories. Okay, are you ready to get cooking?
I am. So
Okay.
I'm making blueberry pancakes, and then I'm gonna talk about waffles as well. I thought that when people do a big breakfast for a group or a brunch, a lot of the times they do a casserole, like a savory strata or maybe a sweet bread pudding strata, which is great. They're wonderful, and I do that as well. But I learned, because I run a B&B, how to do pancakes and waffles for a big crowd as well. So just, a little something different if you don't want to do a casserole. So I'm going to talk about that in order to do pancakes or waffles for a crowd, but it's really fun.
So my fear always is, as I talked, is that how you keep that warm while you're feeding a whole table. I mean, how do you make them, and then how you keep them warm? So I know you'll address that as well.
So let me get the pancakes on, and I'm going to talk about how I do this.
Okay. So while you're doing that, I am going to try to share my screen and get to the blueberry pancakes.
Can you see the griddle?
I can see the grill just fine, and I'm going to leave these blueberry pancakes up for just a minute, just so everybody gets an idea. And then I'm going to go back to the grilling with you.
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay, I'm coming back now.
Okay. All right. So I buttered the griddle.
So what's your grill set on? I mean, is it really high?
350. So I buttered the griddle. I use a 1/4 cup scoop to make small pancakes, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then I put the blueberries on, so you don't stir the blueberries into the batter. So these are gonna cook. And I'm gonna talk about what I'm gonna talk about. So I'm gonna show you the batter.
Great.
So this is the consistency. It's pretty thin. So the recipe that I use is from The Joy of Cooking. And I like it because it is pretty thin. It's sort of between a typical pancake batter and a crepe. So it makes nice, thin, crispy pancakes. They're great with syrup, but they don't soak up the syrup like a thicker pancake would. They make them small, and we serve 3. You could definitely do 2. If you're doing a brunch with a lot of other stuff, you could definitely serve 2 little thin pancakes to each guest.
So Jill, then if I don't have a griddle,
Right.
but I don't, how do I've just got skillets, that I put on my gas stove, and I throw butter in, and I wait until it's kind of, if I splash some water in it, it kind of bubbles or sizzles. Is that right? Or
Yep, sizzling is good. Hot and not too hot, but that's sort of the point of today, is if you want to serve pancakes to a crowd, get an electric griddle. They're $40.
okay.
We have 2 of them. If you really want to feed a crowd and you have room to store 2, I say get 2. They are so much easier than doing it on the stove. You can fit a lot of pancakes on the griddle, and it holds the temperature at exact temperature that you want. So it just makes your life so much easier. Honestly, even if you're doing pancakes for your family of 4, it's worth a griddle. It's $40.
Well, and like you see, it's like when my first batch of pancakes.
I gotta flip these.
Sorry?
I gotta flip these.
Okay. Let's watch ya.
Okay.
All right. Well, the blueberries aren't coming off.
Yeah. So I definitely recommend, again, even if you just want to do it for your family, but just make your life easy. Or if you want to do pancakes for a crowd, get an electric griddle. It makes all the difference. And this batter holds really well. So, it'll hold for a couple hours at room temperature. You don't have to refrigerate it. You don't have to cover it. It sits on the counter. And the key to these beautiful crispy pancakes is, of course, lots of butter. And the other key is to use 2% milk. My recipe says 2% milk. The recipe in the Joy of Cooking just says milk. And when I used to make them for my family, because I've been using this recipe for years and years, I used 2% milk because that was all I had in the house. I never had whole milk. And when we bought the inn, I thought, well, I better try the recipes, my pancake recipes with whole milk and see what happens. And they were much heavier and not as good. They were stodgy, as Paul Hollywood of the British baking show would say. And so whenever I do pancakes, and I recommend you do this too, any pancake recipe you use that calls for milk, use 2%. They just come out much better. So these are ready. Let me grab one and put it on a plate and show you. Let's see, can you see that? Yep.
Yes, I can. It looks lovely.
Small, pretty thin, light, crispy, delicious. And this recipe, when I do it with blueberries, I serve it with a lemon cream, which you have the recipe for.
I do.
It's so simple and it's really good. It's just heavy cream and lemon zest and lemon curd. And you don't want to make your own lemon curd. You want to use a jarred lemon curd because it has pectin in it and cornstarch. And it's, what you're basically doing is making a stabilized whipped cream. So it's super lemony because of the curd and the zest, but it's also stabilized. It's delicious. Keeps in the fridge for hours and hours. I do put it in and out of the fridge as I'm serving people. And we serve it on the side. You could certainly put it on top, but it melts right away and it kind of ruins the effect. And not everybody likes a lot of whipped cream on their pancakes. So we just serve it on the side and it's great because it'll sit on the plate. It won't just fall apart. It's not a softly whipped cream. It's kind of a stabilized cream, which is nice. But this recipe will work great with bananas, chocolate chips. You never mix them in because they're not going to mix evenly. Always want to put the batter on. Again, I use a 1/4 cup to make a small pancake and then place the bananas on or, sprinkle the chips on. When the kids were little, we used to make them with chocolate covered raisins, which are just awesome in pancakes.
You get everything you want there with it.
Yeah, if you have kids, do that. And if you have adults who think they're kids, then do that. So the other breakfast that I want to talk about is Belgian waffles. So we make Belgian waffles a lot. And we have a double Belgian waffle maker. So let me show that to you.
Okay. Oh.
You see that?
Yeah.
It's like this.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are expensive. They're $100 each because it's a double. The singles are less expensive. But there are a lot of reasons why they are just wonderful. When you turn them on, they heat up and they'll tell you when they're hot. So you don't have to worry about that. You pour the batter in, you flip it around and you feel totally like a chef, which is so fun. And then it tells you when they're done.
What do you mean you flip it around?
Yeah, I don't know if I can show you that. I think
Okay.
Here.
Yeah, good, good.
So
Thank-
you open it up. This isn't on. You pour the batter in. You close it, and then it says turn right here on the handle, and you turn it.
Ah,
Then you lift it up, pour the batter in, and turn it again. And you just feel so cool.
yes, it looks cool. You look cool doing it.
And it tells you when it's done. So they could not be easier, and they hold in the oven. So you put them right out of the waffle iron into a low oven, 200 or 250, right on the rack, not on a tray, not even on a tray with a rack on it, right on the oven rack. And they'll hold for 15, 20 minutes. So, you know, you could easily do waffles for 10 people in 20, 25 minutes, and they'll be fine. The pancakes will hold. I do recommend, you know, putting them on a rack on a tray, but they don't hold as well as the waffles. So you can do it. You just want to make sure they don't get soggy.
Yeah.
You don't want them they'll get a little bit soggy. You want them to get as not soggy as possible. But the Belgians hold beautifully in a low oven. They're warm, they're crispy. We serve them with some just regular whipped cream on top, whipped cream with confectionery sugar. So the confectionery sugar does stabilize the cream a little bit, not like lemon curd, but a little bit. We just serve them with some whipped cream and some fruit on top, and of course maple syrup, and that's all you need. The recipe that I have, which you are going to share with everybody, is wonderful because, well, first of all, it doesn't have yeast in it. I tested yeast Belgian waffle recipes and hated them. They just taste so yeasty and didn't like them at all. And then I also tried recipes where you whip the egg whites first and put the yolks in separately. But whipping egg whites in the morning is a pain, and it's loud if you use a mixer, so you're waking up all your guests. And so the recipe that I use, you don't have to do that. It has buttermilk in it, so you do need good buttermilk. But other than that, it's a very easy recipe. I recommend measuring out the dry ingredients the night before. That's all done. The wet ingredients are quick, and then you're just stirring it together. It again will hold. It'll hold for hours, just sitting in a bowl, room temperature, not covered, don't do anything. And it scales really well. I can make Belgian waffles for 2 people, 4 people, 6 people, 8 people, 10 people, or 12 people. So you're making the exact amount of batter that you want, which batter.
The buttermilk. I always see you get so many opportunities. I mean, you can buy low fat, you can buy this and that.
I use Kate's, which I believe is low fat, but it's a good quality buttermilk.
Okay.
And I don't know how it would turn out with a different brand. It might be okay, but I just always use Kate's. I like it, and it's consistent. Every time I buy it, it's exactly the same.
Good. Yeah.
So the other thing that I've been doing lately is doing savory waffles. So I'm using the waffle iron more than just, when I want to make waffles for breakfast. The savory waffles are great for lunch. You could have them for dinner. You can top them with basically anything. You can just get really creative with the waffles. So it's a cornmeal waffle. It is savory. It's a tiny bit sweet, a tiny bit of sugar in it. And again, the original recipe, which was from Bobby Flay, called for separating the yolks and the whites. And I decided to try it without doing that. And it's just fine. So it's a step that you don't need to do. And these freeze great. So you can make them. Yep, that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
That's the recipe. You can make them and freeze them. I wrap them individually in plastic wrap and I freeze them. Then take them out and bring them to room temperature. So they're not frozen and they're not cold, because that's key, because you're only going to heat them for about 10 minutes. So you take them, they're room temperature, and top them. We've been doing ham and Gruyere cheese and some very thin apple slices. and a fried egg, and then I do a little maple mustard drizzle on them. But again, you could top them with, you can get creative with the toppings. You could top them with absolutely anything. I do recommend using a little cheese to get a little melty goodness. But you top them with all the things. I don't do the egg and the maple drizzle. So ham, whatever meat, cheese you're using, put them just on a sheet pan is fine. They don't have to go on right directly on the oven rack. Can go on a sheet pan for about 10 minutes. And of course the cheese melts and the waffle crisps right up. You can't tell it was made previously. Wow. And it's warm and it's delicious. And again, we put an egg on top. I don't know, kind of gild the lily a little and a little sauce and sometimes some microgreens.
Sounds like you can do a lot with all of that. I mean, you're set for the day.
That's right. Yes, you do not need to eat again until about 8 p.m.
Yeah. Well, it sounds delicious. I've never had a savory waffle, so that'll be something to try.
Yeah, they're fun, and I think they're ideal for brunch. We do breakfast, and people like it fine for breakfast, but I think as a brunch item, it would be a big hit. And again, the waffles are all made, so you're just topping them, throwing them in the oven. I would say it's about as easy as doing a breakfast casserole, and maybe a little more impressive.
So how long do you serve breakfast? I mean, from what time to what time?
We usually serve between 8 and 9, but if guests, need to leave a little earlier than that, we certainly can accommodate it. And if somebody comes down at 9:15 and says, "Did we miss breakfast?" The answer is, of course, no, you did not. We're holding.
Yeah.
We get up at about 6 to start serving breakfast at 8. I have to do my hair, of course. So my husband, Don, comes down to the kitchen and does all the prep work. Not all of the prep work, but a lot of prep work. And turns the oven on for me if I need to bake something. So that's a very big help for me. And then it's fun. We have a good time in the kitchen. We goof around a little bit and tease each other. And he asks for a high five and I'll give him a high two. I'm like,
That's great.
And we get to chit chat with the guests, and it's a lot of fun.
Sure. I am so glad, and I really appreciate everything your willingness to do this for us today, and you are a great cook.
Thank you.
No doubt about that. Did you have anything else that you wanted to?
Yeah, you said you were looking for tricks, and
oh yeah,
I have learned so much being here, but I thought I would share just a simple thing, which is bar cookies. Bar cookies are so great to feed a lot of people, and there's some really fancy bar cookies recipes now, which are great, but cutting them can be hard. Mm. So what I do is obviously a 9x13 pan, almost always you're doing a bar cookie in, and ignore what it says about greasing the pan and put tin foil in.
Put tin foil in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Line it with tin foil. So take a few minutes and really line it kind of carefully, getting it into the corners. It takes a couple minutes and smooth it out. Obviously not going to be completely smooth, but spend a few minutes getting that right. Then you make your cookie and bake it and let it cool to room temperature and then put it in the fridge. So you're doing this the day before. All the, making the cookie, baking the cookie, letting it cool and putting it in the fridge all happened the day before. So then you take it out that morning and you just lift the whole thing out and take the foil off and you have a block, and it's much easier to cut. First of all, you're not cutting it in the pan. But secondly, you've got it on a big cutting board, big knife, and you can cut it whatever size you want, but you're cutting it cleanly. You put it on your platter however you're going to serve it, and then just let it come to room temperature. So, because you need to cut it cold, but you want to serve it warm.
Right. Yeah.
So that has been a lifesaver for me. I, of course, have to be much more organized now than I ever was. always organized, but I was never this organized. You really have to be thinking ahead all the time. But making those the day before and cutting them, they're going to cut cleanly. They're going to look beautiful, and they're going to be the right temperature. So you just have to plan ahead.
Sounds good. What do you like kind of bars do you usually make? What kind of cookie bars, like chocolate chip or what?
I do toffee brownies a lot. So those have a ton of chopped up Heath bars in them. And the woman who runs the Smitten Kitchen blog, Deb Perelman, I'm not sure I'm saying her last name right, has this recipe for gooey oat bars that are just wonderful. They have a shortbread crust, and then they have this buttery, gooey, oaty topping. And I use dried cranberries and semi-sweet chocolate chips, and they also have coconut in them, and they're great, and they're a little bit different. I do all kinds of, I do regular cookies too. I love to make cookies, but bar cookies, you get a lot of bang for your buck. It's usually one bowl and one quick cleanup, and you're serving a lot of people, especially if you cut them small. One of the things that we've found here is people really want just a small bite of something. No matter how delicious I make a cake or a tart or anything like that, I put it out. Even if I put it on a plate, people don't want to sit down and eat it. They just want a little bite of something. So that's maybe just here at the end, or maybe it's helpful for people. I don't know, but definitely make any kind of, really anything that you are going to cut and you want to cut cleanly, make it the day before, cut it cold, let it sit to room temperature. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, well, that's a really good idea. I have a lot of problems with cutting things, like brownies or whatever like that, but I assume that would work for them too, right?
Oh yeah, it works for anything like that. I line all my pans with tin foil, and I do everything ahead and just lift them out, cut them, let them sit. And you could let a pan of brownies or a pan of any kind of bar cookie sit in the fridge like that for a couple of days, no problem. Cover the top with some Saran wrap. They can sit in the fridge for a couple of days, then just take them out and cut them a few hours before you want to serve them, so they have time to come to room temp.
Now I'm really hungry.
I got some pancakes over here.
Yeah, I'll be right over. Thank you so much, Jill. This was really, really special, and in taking your time out of your day and all of that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was really fun. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll put all that up on the website, and on our YouTube. And
okay. Good. Try the recipes.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.